Hello and welcome to my session. I'm Mark from Zurich, University of Applied Sciences. I'm talking about life design counseling using the vocational identity card. Here on the right side, you see the so-called vocational ID, and you see that we have 4 different parts, and in the middle we have space for an image. I'm going to start with career construction counseling in practice. So basically, I'm going to talk about career construction counseling and career construction theory. And I highly recommend you to read Mark Savicka's book, 2019, Career Construction Theory, Life Portraits of Attachment, Adaptability, and Identity. So there you're going to find the whole theory and 4 very interesting case studies. So I'm talking about the different phases of career construction counseling. Basically, I'm a practitioner and also a researcher and lecturer. I'm basically talking about counseling processes that last over, let's say, 2 to 7 counseling sessions. So yeah, I'm going to talk about the phases. Then I'm talking about the career. I'm going to talk about the career construction interview. I'm going to show you the life portrait. The vocational ID is a special form of generating a life portrait. That's the main focus of my talk. Then I'm going to talk about the resource images. That's a tool we developed in Zurich, University of Applied Sciences. It's a freely available tool, and as I really like to work with images, I absolutely want you to know this tool. That's the practice. I'm gonna talk about Chris. Chris is a case study here, and I'm talking about Chris's case. Presenting the vocational ID. Then I'm talking about the career construction theory, but only very briefly. I'm talking about the 3 paradigms established by Mark Savickas. And afterwards, some more theory. I'm going to talk about the personality systems interaction theory, the PSI theory. And I will finish with some conclusions. Okay, career construction counseling, CCC. That's basically out of Mark Savicka's 2020 publication, and he differentiates between 3 phases. The first phase is on concentrating on the problem, the challenge of the clients. So counselors help clients to understand and explore micro-narratives or short stories about the constructs with which they have formed their careers. So it's about the construction phase, like asking the CCI question. I also work with questionnaires in the construction phase. Then the phase 2 is the concentration on the change. And here we have the classical phases of the deconstruction, reconstruction, and co-construction, for those who are familiar with Mark Savicka's theory. So counselors help clients to deconstruct their micro-narratives. So the short stories are deconstructed and reconstructed into a bigger macro narrative that shifts perspective. So it's about the shift of perspective, and it's about new understandings. And at the end of this phase, it's about co-constructing. So it means that clients co-construct with their new understanding. They embed their new understanding into their career. And then the last phase, the third phase, it's on consolidation of the transformation, reviewing plans and beginning to change. And here you see the career construction interview questions. It's 6 questions. From the first question, how can it be useful to you as you construct your career? Here you can read on your own the 6 questions, and I'm sure you already know them. Here you see the integration of the different paradigms within this CCI. It's about vocational guidance, the first paradigm, and it's the question about the role models who reflects on vocational guidance. Then the question about the favorite magazines or TV shows, it's the career education paradigm, and basically the favorite book or favorite movie covers the life design paradigm. So this is the genius part within the CCI that really it integrates the 3 different paradigms of career development. Then I directly come to the life portrait. This life portrait is the suggestion from Mark Savikas himself on vocofer.com. A very nice homepage where you find all relevant stuff for career construction counseling. So this is the life portrait. It's a linguistic life portrait. So it means that it's about text, formulating text. And here you see that the first, no, it's not the first question. Here is the question about the early recollection. This is the last question. And here you deconstruct the relevant parts of this question. Here is the role model question. Here is the magazine, TV shows question. Here is the favorite story question. And here we have the self-advice, the motto question. And here is another form that is part of the life portrait, the so-called success formula. It's basically a brief version of the worksheet here. And now I'm coming to the vocational ID. And here I just want to show you what we did. So we basically defined the so-called vocational identity card, and it's just another version or another possibility to form a life portrait. And we start here on the left side with preoccupations, or we say life themes or needs. Here is the early recollection question. And then we go here on the top left side, where it is about characteristics and values, so the self CCI question about the early childhood role models. And then we go here on the right side about preferred magazines, TV shows, or also websites. And here it's about interests and preferred working environments. And then here on the right side, we have the advice to yourself and the next steps. It's the questions 4 and 5 of the CCI. So here you see the connection of the life portrait. So it's basically the same. It's just another form of presentation. And here we have the setting, here the script. And then as the whole, we would say that the whole can be considered as a success formula. Yeah, this is already all about the vocational ID, but I want to go to the next slide and show you how we work with the vocational ID. And I already mentioned that in the construction phase, where we ask the CCI questions, I like to work also with questionnaires or working materials, such as the resource images. Here you have the link to the resource images, but I will come back to those images later on. So this is the construction phase where people just, they tell their stories, their micro stories. Then the deconstruction phase, where it's about detecting patterns of dominance or disorganization. And then I already went through the phases. It's about reconstruction, where clients establish their life portrait. So this is the establishing the vocational ID. It's from construction until reconstruction. And then the co-construction phase is where we work, or where clients themselves work with their vocational idea. So clients make decisions and transform the decisions into concrete actions. Here I refer to the very helpful life design counseling manual. It's also available on Vocafair. And I already refer here to our publication, where we present the vocational ID, connecting life design counseling and personality systems interaction theory. So that's basically what I'm going to explain to you here and right now. I'm coming to my case study, and I have to say it's the same case study as in the publication I mentioned to you just before. So it's Chris's case, and I just briefly characterize or tell you what have been his answers to the different questions of the CCI. Some information about Chris. He is a 39-year-old former professional athlete, and he immigrated to Switzerland from ex-Yugoslavia as a child. So he's an immigrant in Switzerland and was a professional athlete in Switzerland. And his counseling concern, so the reason why he took part, it was a research project with former athletes. And the reason why he took part is that he wanted to be self-employed as a sports coach. So that was his aim, and he came to the counseling session, or he took part in the research project because he wanted to get more insight about himself, and he wanted to achieve his goal as a self-employer together with his girlfriend and another colleague. So, and then I start with the 3 childhood memories. So it's the last question, because here you see that and it's how Mark Savikas suggests to deconstruct the CCI. So we start with the early recollection question. And he said in his first memory, it was about the age of 2 years, that he woke up thirsty and he called his father for something to drink. So he called him and he asked him if he can bring him something to drink, some water. And the title for this recollection was "Help, I Need Something." So this was the first memory. The second situation was that he wanted to be pushed in a baby carriage, although his mother thought he was old enough to walk, but he was permitted to sit in the baby carriage. And he said the title of this second memory is "I'm Too Comfortable." And then the third memory, Chris told that he stayed at home at the age of 3 or 4 with his older cousin, and while his parents were out. And the children made a ruckus, so they made some noise until a neighbor came by and reprimanded them and put Chris here. And the headline for this story was "Whoop It Up." And from these 3 recollections, and you see that in the ID card, the vocational ID card, he on his own, he deconstructed that his themes or his needs are support, comfort. So sometimes he said, I'm too lazy, I need support, but I also want to give support, for example, as a self-employed coach. And one of his third theme or need is lightness. And he explained that sometimes he took it too easy and sometimes he took it too hard in the past. So lightness is quite an important theme for him. Yeah, this is the early recollection question. Then I come to the next question. And the next question is the early childhood role model question. And there he identified He-Man. This is an animated character. I don't know if somebody outside Europe will know He-Man, but this is just an animated character. And he described the character as being tall, blonde, muscular, and good-natured. And in the animated movie, the united with a sword and the tiger, the figure, He-Man, he transformed himself into a hero to fight against evil. And so Chris also wants to help and wants to support, and that's why he deconstructed here supporting, good-natured, and helping, that it's a characteristic of himself. So he was talking about He-Man, but he realized that is also his personality. So that's He-Man, and he said that the second role model, it was a neighbor and later friend, and he described the friend as a quiet person who had gradually opened up and was now a joker. So that's how he described the friend. And he himself had become calmer over the years. So also this second role model, you see that here, today he's calmer, more mature, and he also explained that he still needs support by his partner, also for the self-employment part. He wants to be supported by partners. This is the second role model, and then the third role model is the Brazilian football player Zico, and he especially admired his gameplay as a central player and playmaker, and the way he could unfold his strength within a team. So here is the team player aspect, where that is very important for him, also as a coach. Yeah, this is the question number 2. Then I switch to the next question about TV show and website. And he said that he reads magazines like GQ, Men's Health, that he also visits Facebook, daily newspapers, and sports shows. And when I asked him why or which part in the magazine he's particularly interested in, he said it's about fashion, nutrition, health, trends, and sports. And he said, okay, of course, the daily newspaper he reads in order to get current information. And we together established the ryersec model. And here you see the Holland, so-called Holland code out of the CCI interview. It's realistic, social, and conventional. So that's what we together deconstructed out of the magazine and website, and yeah, website he consults. And you see here that I also worked with an interest questionnaire, and you see here we have a different aspect of his interests. So the interest questionnaire or his interest questionnaire profile resulted in a social, conventional, artistic, or social, conventional, enterprising profile. So this is the question number 3. And then I come to the questions number 4 and 5. And as a favorite book, Chris mentioned the biography of Zlatan Ibrahimovic, a very famous soccer player, also an immigrant, and he characterized him as strong-willed, and he had to fight his way through, especially during his youth. And he also mentioned the poor conditioned, and he was always supported by his father. And so there already, you see the parallel to Chris. He, on his side, he said that he sometimes wished more support from his father, but his father pushed him and he pushed himself and made his own athletic decision. You see here Ibrahimovic, and the story of Ibrahimovic is a willful pushing for his life manner, and that's what Chris deconstructed for his own story, let's say. And then we are already with the last question. It's the question about his favorite motto, and you take it as an advice to yourself. And he said that what doesn't kill me makes me stronger. So that's an advice he gives himself. So that's the vocational idea. And I was not mentioning now here the part in the middle. I forgot here. I only went through the CCI, but of course, if you want to work with personality questionnaires or adjective lists, and then you can do it with the vocational idea, then you get the insight out of the personality questionnaires or adjective lists. You can complete here the top left area of the vocational idea. And you can also work, as I already mentioned, with the interest questionnaire, but you can also work with the motive questionnaires, and you can complete the top right area with the insights out of those questionnaires. And if we talk about the bottom right area, there we can also work with a lifeline. Lifeline is basically a line where you draw the life or career satisfaction for different career stages. Or you can also work with a hero story. And here it's basically about constructing or deconstructing career counseling clients' narrative. So we can work with the favorite book question, or we can work with lifelines or with the hero story as well. And then I want to talk about the middle section. And here you see that Chris, he chose a scooter, and he chose the scooter because he said if he wants to achieve his goal, namely to be self-employed, he wants to achieve his goal as he would proceed or he would drive with a scooter. Compared to a sports car, the scooter is very close to the nature. He's feeling rain, he's feeling nature. He also feels when it's going up, when it's going down. So he feels very close to his surrounding, to his environment when he's driving with the scooter. Compared to an aeroplane or a sports car, would be completely different. So Chris chose his scooter. And I like it very much to work with images. And that's why I, at this point of the presentation, make a little excursion. And the excursion is about the resource images. It is a tool we developed, and you can find it freely available here under this link. And it starts with 80 images, and clients rate the images with 3 different options. So they either say it does not appeal to me, neutral, or does appeal to me. And all the images where a client says it appeals to me, they show up after the 80 images, and then clients can form different groups. So they can form a group nature or whatever. And at the end, clients choose their favorite resource image. And then they write the story about the image. Here you find basically the introduction of the, if you know, the thematic apperception test developed in the 1930s by Murray, a personality psychologist. And here you basically find the same introduction. As a next step, look at your resource image above and write a complete story about the image you see. And the following questions might help you to write the story. What is happening now on the image? Who are the people shown in the image? What happened before? What do the people think and feel? So it's basically the introduction to write a story. And we work with the story. We can deconstruct emotions, motives, needs, or even life themes out of the resource. Out of the story, clients write about the resource image. And clients are also guided through a reflection process where they start with first thoughts. When you look at your favorite resource image, then emotion and feelings, and also strength and resources. So people are guided through a process where they themselves deconstruct strengths, resources, and they are already asked, how could you currently make use of these resources for yourself? So it's kind of a deconstruction process where the clients go through. So this as a little excursion. I now come back to the presentation, and I come to the career construction theory, the CCT. So once again, career construction theory, you find everything you need here in the 2019 book by Mark Savikas. Here you see the 3 paradigms: vocational guidance, let's say about 1900, then career education about 1950, and the life design paradigm, which is attributed to the 21st century. And this is the core meta theory of the career construction theory. And here you see that if you have a look at the processes, then you start with the self-organizing process. Here it's about personality characteristics. And so young people or even children, but also adults, they organize themselves based on personality. And career education is related to self-regulation processes. So here people have their own goals. They want to achieve goals. They want to complete or integrate their interests and motives, and they go through a self-regulation process in order to achieve their goals. And the life design process is self-conceiving. So people or clients, basically, they construct their narrative. And the science of the self is, if we have a look at the vocational guidance, again, it's the actor, and it's an object perspective. Also, it's about objective scores like personality questionnaire scores. Whereas here, the career education paradigm here is about self-estimates, and here it's an agent, so clients, they know what they want, they know where they want to go, and the clients are considered as a subject themselves. And if you go to the life design paradigm, here clients are considered as authors of their own story. So here it's about projects and it's about narratives. And last but not least, the perspective and the counseling focus. Here it's the perspective of the empiricism, or we can also say positivism, very empirically driven, quantitative, empirically driven perspective, where counselors try to match clients to a specific or to their corresponding working surrounding. It's about guiding, so counselors guide clients, and it's about giving advice. And here, if we have a look at the research, very often the dependent variable is the work or the life satisfaction. This is the aim, basically. We try to match people in order that they can improve their work or life satisfaction. And here it's the humanism, and it's about self-actualization or self-regulation. And counselors, they help clients to achieve the next step on their career ladder. So it's a coaching approach, it's an education approach, and very often I know that there is a big discussion here whether the career success is objective or subjective, but very often, at least implicitly, career counseling clients, they follow an objective career success goal. So which means to earn more, to make the next step on the career ladder, so to improve money, influence, whatever. And compared to the life design paradigm, where it is a constructionism approach or social constructionist approach, where clients and counselors together form a social setting, and where the narration takes place, the narration of the career counseling client's story. So it's self-construction, and it's about designing or healing. Here I refer to the positive psychologists like Seligman or Diener. It's not about work or life satisfaction as an objective measure. Here it's subjective well-being or coherence, Antonovsky's sense of coherence. To sum it all up, we can say that the career construction theory, even though it is clearly very closely related to the life design paradigm, it is constructed as a framework that integrates all the three paradigms of vocational guidance, career education, and life design. And that's what I very much like about the CCT. It's an open framework, and it's integrating a lot of very useful theories. Well, now I very shortly introduced you to the PSI theory, to the personality systems interaction theory. The theory has been developed by Julius Kuhl, a German psychologist. And it's also a bit like the CCT. It's a very broad, very psychological theory that tries to explain personal development. The PSI theory differentiates between volitional facilitation and self-development. It's a very complex theory, and I really try to explain this theory very briefly, so I will not go into the details here. Volitional facilitation is about intention memory, so it's about making abstract plans, and it's also about intuitive behavior control. So it's about performing routines and executing activities. And if we have a look at career development, there are career counseling clients, they make plans and they try to implement their plans in order to co-construct their life portraits. So, of course, intention memory and intuitive behavior control is quite important when it comes to implementing plans. And as you see here, volitional facilitation is connected to positive effects, which means that positive effects foster performing routines, and positive effect therefore fosters implementing one's career plans. This is the volitional facilitation. Self-development is about cognitions and experience. So it's not about concrete behavior, it's about cognitions and experiences. And it's about the extension memory, where the feeling of the integrated self takes place. And it's here the extension memory, and it's also about object recognition, where we identify very, very small details. We would all agree that we all want to self-develop, and Kuhl says that therefore we have to feel our integrated self, and with integrated self he means that we integrate all our experience, all our past experience. And sometimes we need to integrate new details, and therefore we sometimes have to dive into details, and therefore we need the object recognition. And we see here that the negative effect is associated with the self-development. This means that if we are feeling a negative effect, it fosters identifying details. And maybe more important for the vocational ID is the differentiation between thinking fast and thinking slow. I refer to Daniel Kahneman, and here Kuhl differentiates between the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere. The left hemisphere functions more explicitly, more analytic, and it's about the sequential information processing. So when we work with language, we focus on the left hemisphere, we focus on explicit and analytic processes. And I really like to work with images. And here you see why, because then we address the right hemisphere of our brain, and the right hemisphere, according to Kuhl, functions mainly implicitly and holistic, and it's very fast because it's a parallel information processing. So this is what, in a nutshell, what we can learn from the PSI theory, that it's worthwhile to focus on both fast processes, like here the green right side, but also focus on slow processes, here marked with blue color. Now let me conclude with some final thoughts about the vocational ID. I think that the vocational ID is worth working with because it combines thinking fast and slow. as I already mentioned before. So thinking slow is basically it's a live portrait based on the linguistic representation. Here you see that we work with language, and language corresponds to thinking slow, thinking in details. And it's, for example, focusing on conducting the CCI, but as already mentioned before, the vocational ID can also be used when working with other career counseling approaches. Then thinking fast is also included within the vocational ID. And on one hand, it's because the vocational ID itself is a visual representation, because it's a one-pager and people or career counseling clients can put the vocational ID on their desk, for example. Then on the other hand, we have thinking fast because we work with images, and images always address the right hemisphere of our brain. And there we can work with the PSI theory and focus on either volitional control or self-development or self-growth. So thank you very much for listening. If you want to work with the ID, you can click here on the link and then you will get the PDF. Whenever you have questions, just contact me via email.